Okay, welcome everybody. It is really cool to be with you, and I thank you for coming to share with me tonight and to share with all of us. For those of you who don't know me, because there's some names here that I don't know, I'm a conscious sexuality practitioner and teacher in South Africa. I work with people with sexual and relationship issues and problems. I teach a whole range of lessons and workshops and retreats about having more intimacy, better sex, whatever that means. And that means a lot of different things. More connection, a lot about sexual energy, the connection between sex and spirituality. Work a lot with people on journeys of sexual and sensual exploration. The connection between sex and spirituality, heart-centered sexuality. I write lots, as you who follow me on the different media platforms will know, and I love sharing. So thank you for coming to be with me tonight. So this webinar came about. I've been doing a lot of webinars lately. Last year during the lockdown, I did one almost every week. And this particular topic came about from, I've been working a lot with some men lately on some sexual problems that a lot of men face and still don't and won't talk about. Erection issues, premature ejaculation, not feeling intimate. And that's a huge one for so many men. And I thought it would be really beautiful to have a discussion about male sexuality. And I'm really happy for this to be a discussion as much as a talk. So anytime you'd like to ask anything or say anything, either please unmute yourselves or type it into the chat box. And I'd love to hear what you have to say about all of what we're going to talk about tonight. So please close your eyes and put one or both hands on your heart center in the middle of your chest or wherever you connect with your heart. And take a deep breath in, a slow, deep breath in. And breathe out. And as you breathe in and as you breathe out, just have the awareness that you're breathing into your heart center and that you're breathing out from your heart center, your heart organ. Slow, deep breaths into your heart and out from your heart. Bring your awareness to your exhale, to your out breath. Let each out breath be just a little longer. And as your out breath is a little longer, your next inhale will be a little deeper. Keep that awareness of breathing into your heart. And become aware of the weight of your body. If you're sitting, if you're lying, the weight of your body. And become aware of sensation that you feel anywhere in your body. And become aware of your breath moving in and out of your body. Your chest, your belly gently rising and relaxing. Maybe become aware of the very subtle movement of your breath as it comes into your nostrils. And as it leaves your body through your nose, through your mouth. And for a moment, bring your awareness back to your heart center. And take a slow, deep breath into your heart. And slowly breathe out. And again, a slow, deep breath in. And slowly, slowly breathe out from your heart. And slowly open your eyes. And just take a moment to be aware of how you feel right now, how your body feels, how your energy feels, what you feel emotionally, whatever that might be. Just being with yourself. So when I came up with this topic for tonight's webinar, a phrase came to me of that male sexuality is delicate. It's delicate because we don't talk about so many of these issues. For so many men, sexual issues, sexual problems, their connection to their own sexuality, their connection to their bodies, to their genitals, is something that is not in our conscious awareness. And when we have sexual issues, when we have sexual problems, when we have sexual doubts, when we have things about sex that come up that we don't understand, so many of us men won't go there. It scares us. It terrifies us sometimes. And I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and I have seen so many relationships end because we won't heal, we won't grow, we won't learn. And for so many men, there is still such a stigma about having sexual issues, about having sexual doubts, about being uncertain, about being confused. Because as men, we are supposed to know how to do all of this. We're supposed to know how to be super lovers in every sense of the word. And we don't. We don't get any real education for pleasure. We don't get any education for love. We don't get any education for intimacy. And we don't get any education on what it is to be a man and what it is to be a sexual man. So we get so many myths, we get so much misunderstanding, we get so much misinformation. We get so much from porn of how we think sex should be. And so much of our world is based on a porn model of sex. So between porn and what I call the porn combine and the Disney combine, so the porn combine is that every man has an absolutely enormous cock and every man has erections that last absolutely forever. And every woman has multiple orgasms from sheer pounding penetration, and it's absolutely fine to ejaculate all over her face. And every woman is ready for sex all the time. And anal sex is so easy because you just slip it in. And every woman wants to have threesomes and all sorts of really, really bizarre things. And the other side of all this is kind of what the Hollywood media, what Disney gives us, is this empty champagne bottle in the ice bucket, and this trail of clothes leading to the bed, and the curtains blowing in the breeze off the beach, and everybody wakes up having had simultaneous amazing orgasms the night before, and everybody's hair and makeup is perfect, and nobody's breath smells in the morning, and all of this happily ever after story. And we don't get anything that's real in this. We just get fantasy. And it becomes so difficult for us to actually learn, for us to get real, open, honest information, and for us to have a space where we can talk about things. And this idea of space for men, especially community for men, is so important, and it is growing in the world through the men's movement, through the Mankind Project, through tantric groups that come together. And we need so much more of it. And it certainly is one of my missions for this year, is to create more community, firstly for the people around me, and for men, particularly in Johannesburg and in South Africa. It's so important for us to have the space. And one of the biggest issues, I think, that face us as men is the disconnect between our genitals and our hearts. And when we see these as being separate, our sexuality and the extension of that, our relationships, and the extension of that is the way that we live, the way that we work, our relationship to jobs, our relationship to money, is so much based on this disconnect. And when it just comes from our genitals, it's very much fueled by an energy that is often pure lust, that there is never enough. It's an expression that is absolutely empty, because nothing in that is fulfilling. And deep down inside, when I really sit and talk to men, what so many men are looking for is that fulfillment and that connection. And, so many myths about male sexuality is all that men are interested in sex, and all that men are interested in is sex with so many different people, and always wanting to have sex. And it's actually not the case. There are so many men who are looking for intimacy, who are looking for connection. And the model of sex that we have is so genital. It's so much about hard erections and driving, thrusting sex and friction sex and orgasms and ejaculation. And it's not about the heart. So we change so much by connecting to our hearts, by understanding that our genitals and our hearts are one energy system in our body. And from our heart, we can connect to something higher, to something deeper. And that's where we start to become the expression of spirit in sex, of the sacred in sex, of allowing ourselves to become a vessel for this energy to flow through us into the world. And when we do this, we create a space, we create a container for our partners to be all that they can be. We open that up by being all who we can be. So when we want to express ourselves in deeper ways, it has to come from the heart. And the model that we have of male sexuality is so genital, not heart-oriented. So let's take a step back and let me share with you the model that I work with. So we live and we work as humans in terms of patterns. And an easy way to understand that is every time you brush your teeth in the same way. You bath or shower, you wash in the same way. You eat in the same way. Sexually and in relationship and in life, we do exactly the same thing. We do this because it works, or we think it works. It's what we know, and it's our comfort zone. And that's how we live. Until we start becoming more conscious, until we start becoming more aware, everything that we do comes from a pattern. Most of our patterns are subconscious. We're not aware of them until we have some kind of problem. Then we start looking at that. The patterns that we live with are in our minds and they're in our bodies. And that's really important to understand, because if your body is patterned and conditioned to do what it does, then regardless of what your mind might want to do on any given day or night, your body is going to do what it's conditioned to do. And we just simply go into the pattern of that. When we want to heal, when we want to grow, when we want to learn, we want to expand, even when we would just like to have different relationships, different pleasure experiences, more intimacy, more connection, we have to go beyond the pattern. So every healing modality and every growth modality falls into two categories. The first is a pain-based category. And the easiest way to understand this is, if you have a pain, all that you wanted is fixed. So if you have a sore knee, all that you want is your knee fixed. So you're going to go to the physio or massage therapist or acupuncture or dry needling, whatever you're going to do until your knee gets fixed. The focus of that is the pain. Is the pain less? Is the pain less? Is it better? It's all about the pain. It's a model of contraction. The other is about possibility. And it says, what could you do if your knee wasn't sore? So you could dance, you could go to yoga, you could get into all sorts of cool sex positions. You can come to the aqua release workshop we're doing on Saturday that I'll talk a little bit about at the end of this. It's about creating possibility, and it's about expansion. And when we start living with the idea of possibility and the idea of expansion, that's where we can start to change as a natural extension of who we are. And all of that comes out of creating a relationship with ourselves, an intimacy with ourselves, that we really know who we are. And from that, expressing ourselves in the world in so many ways becomes easy and it becomes natural. The tantric perspective on healing is that none of us need to be fixed. None of us need to be healed. That's such a modern Western concept, that something is wrong with us, that we are broken. Yes, we do things that are contractive. And yes, we do things that are not expressions of love and that are not expressions of the heart. But the healing journey is connecting us with ourselves, taking away everything that we are not. One of my favorite quotes is from the sculptor Michelangelo, and that's who it's attributed to anyway. And he was asked, how does he actually create a sculpture? How does he create a statue? And he says, he looks at the block of marble, he looks at the block of stone, and everything that is not the statue, he takes away. And that really is the journey. It's connecting with the parts of ourselves that we have disconnected from and been disconnected from through stress, through trauma, through judgment, through circumstance, through not allowing ourselves to be those parts of who we are. So, for example, when I was young, when I was a child, I didn't know how to express anger. And the only way that I knew how to express anger was this huge buildup that eventually overflowed and erupted in a way that was totally inappropriate to the situation, but it was so much that came out. And until I learned how to be able to say, I'm angry, this kept coming out, and it was so much suppression of it. And it was a part of me that I had never connected with, that I never had a relationship with. And our sexuality is the same. For most of us as men, we have never had, and I'm talking about men tonight, and so much of this applies to all of us, to men and women, but we've never had a conscious connection with our sexuality. We've never had a conscious connection with our bodies, with our genitals, and we have never had a conscious connection with our hearts. The relationship that we have with these parts of ourselves is at best, and I say at best, functional. Functional means that everything works. So what most of us are concerned about with our genitals is they work. And they work in the way we would like them to work. And I say this relationship is functional at best, because for most of us, the relationship that we have with our bodies, and more specifically with our genitals, is less than functional. It's a relationship that is based on judgment, on guilt, on shame, on embarrassment, on the way, particularly for so many men, the size of their genitals, the way that they function. And the model that we have for this is porn. And, you know, the amount of actors in porn, it might seem like a lot, but compared to the amount of men in the world, it's actually really small. So of course they're going to go and look for guys with really big genitals, because that's what it's all about. And we have been so conditioned into the comparison of this and the being less than, and the embarrassment of that and the disconnect from that. And I haven't been in a gym in a year. So I used to swim a lot at the gym. That's really what I do. And it's so interesting how many men will actually never be nude in the change room in the gym. How many men will always keep themselves covered. There's nothing about, oh, this is my body. There's such a fear and such a withhold in this. And so much of this is because of the disconnect of our genitals and our hearts. So when I was a teenager, I was terrified of girls. I had such a sexual desire, and I had all these fantasies and all these thoughts, and so much desire and so much fear. Because I always felt like everybody else had been told how to do things. Everybody else got the rule book, and everybody else got all these explanations except me. And I was terrified. Like, how did you go from kissing to her boobs? And what did you do? Just put your hand there, and then what? And I just couldn't work all of this out. And I remember some girls that I had a sort of, teenage relationship with, and they actually ended it because I wouldn't do anything more than kiss them because I was terrified. And then when I was 17, I had my first sexual experience, which was not very pleasant, but I got over that. And then went on this huge journey of personal sexual exploration, where I had every experience that I could think of, where I did everything that I possibly could. And at the same time, started exploring healing and sexual energy, and started looking at how all of those came together, until about 20 years ago, woke up one morning and saying, this is what I want to do. And 20 odd years later, here I am, having learned a lot and knowing that I know so little, and how much more there is to learn and to explore. And in this, and I can only talk for my world here in South Africa that I know about, for so many men to come on this journey of not only healing, but simply learning about sex, exploring ourselves as sensual beings, is so hard. And I celebrate every man who does. Because for so many of us, this is such a fear-based journey. And again, it comes from not being connected to our hearts. It's such a journey of the mind. It's such a journey of the story and the expectations and the conditioning around it, and not being willing to be vulnerable, not being willing to be in our hearts and to allow ourselves to live as men of heart. So we get so caught up in all of the externals of what it is to be a man and the success around that and the lack of success around that and what we have or what we don't have and how much and how big. And it's such an external world. And the world of our sexuality is internal. It's about us. It's not about how many people we have sex with. It's not about how long, how many rounds, how many orgasms we can give her, how many times we can make her come, and all sorts of other things, and how many fantasies we've lived and expressed. It's really a journey inwards. And that's really the tantric journey. It is a journey into ourselves. And I've shared this quite a lot over the past 2 years in various discussions. The last relationship that I was in ended nearly 2 years ago. And after that, for a while, I didn't have sex just as a natural expression of that, and then made a conscious decision not to. And in these past nearly 2 years, I have gone really deeply into looking at my own sexuality and my relationship with my genitals. And over time, I've written pieces about that, and I've shared them on Facebook and on my website. And it's really taken me to such a different place in terms of sex, to an understanding for so many of us how we are addicted to the way that we have sex. And what we get addicted to is the feeling that it gives us. It's not so much the sex, it's the feeling. But that our bodies don't know what to do without that. That we're not willing to sit with that, to sit with what is an agitation at first. So from someone who has spent their entire adult life exploring sexuality, at some point I was even involved for a couple of years in running a swingers club. That was, I was so deeply in the world of sexuality, and it's something that I work with every day. But to start going beyond that, to start looking at what is our intention of expressing ourselves as sexual beings, and how do we choose to do that? What of ourselves do we choose to share? What of ourselves do we bring to that? And taking me really deep into a lot of conversations with my body, with my heart, with my genitals, looking at the idea of performance. So you have to know, because of what I do, I have a high level of, let's call it, sexual skill. And there was a time where so much of the sex that I was having was about expressing that. And it was beautiful. It was a lot of fun. And it passed. And one of the biggest freedoms that we can give ourselves as men is going beyond orgasm. Now, let me be very clear on this, because there's always a disclaimer with this particular piece of discussion. Orgasms are fabulous. Orgasms are wonderful. We can have different kinds of orgasms as men, and orgasms are fabulous. But orgasm also becomes a trap. If sex is only about orgasm, that's the trap, and it is never going to be deeply fulfilling. Because as soon as one orgasm has ended, there's a little period of rest, and immediately we're looking for the next one. It's a hunger that is never going to be fully satisfied. When we start to go beyond orgasm, when we start to understand that orgasm is but one expression in this limitless field of possibility, we start to free ourselves from so much conditioning, from so much expectation, and from performance. Because in that, there isn't a performance. There isn't a goal. And I sat with a couple this afternoon who are on a beautiful journey of learning and exploration. And we were talking about one of the important things in having a different experience is being clear on the intention that we're bringing to it. So if our intention in a sexual experience with another is intimacy, that's very different to the intention of orgasm. If our intention is connection, that's very different to a patterned experience. If our intention is the experience of sexual energy, that's very different to the pattern sex of orgasm. When we start to change this, when it starts to be more an expression of the heart, more an expression of spirit, more an expression of energy, then we actually have to learn to have sex differently. Because if sex is only about penetration and friction and orgasm, when we want to do something different, we get stuck because we don't know what else to do. So we go back to doing what it is that we know how to do, because that's our default setting. And when it becomes more of the heart, more of the whole body, more of our eyes, more of our mouths, more of our breath, more of that moment of allowing energy to move in the body and to flow in me and between us and in you, when all of that is moving, it becomes a very different experience. And it's very much more about being present. And in presence, we become more spontaneous. And spontaneous says that within us, within our bodies, is this incredible wisdom that knows how to touch, this incredible wisdom that knows how to open the heart, that knows how to connect. And when we allow ourselves that, there is this beautiful flow of energy. And being a man, that expresses itself in so many different ways that sometimes it is this fire of absolute incredible energy. And sometimes it's really soft and really slow and really gentle. And owning all of those parts of ourselves becomes so important. Firstly, for the expression of the fullness of who we are. And secondly, in opening the space for our partners to step into that with the fullness of who they are. It comes from us, and it comes from us being willing to be more conscious, more aware, more awake, and more in that. And what's so interesting is a lot of the workshops that I teach are about sexual technique, things like expanded orgasm, different ways of massaging, and even on the Valentine's weekend, I have a retreat coming up with couples, which, by the way, there is one space open for a couple. So if you want to do something amazing for Valentine's Day with your partner, one space available on the retreat. And part of that is learning how to connect, how to be more intimate, and spending the day on Saturday doing tantric massage and taking that a little bit into Sunday morning. It's learning how to do something, because there's a big part of us that says, I have to know how to, I have to have a framework, I have to have a blueprint, I have to have an idea, I have to have a map, something that's going to get me there. But all of that is simply a portal. It's an opening. And for so many of us, for so many men, it's so much about the how to. And I love that because so much of my work is about that. So I think it's fabulous. But it really is a doorway into everything else. And everything in Tantra, everything in Taoist sexuality, everything in meditation is a doorway in. The experience, the technique takes us into ourselves, into that space. And when we understand that, when we can go beyond the technique, and you know what's interesting? It's been more than a year since we've had a Sexpo, one of these sex exhibitions in South Africa. And there've been, I think, 13 or 14, 15. Anyway, at each of these, I have a stand and I do a whole lot of talks and a whole lot of demos. And I have a range of DVDs that we've produced that are all about different sexual techniques, massage, yoni massage, blowjobs, things like this. And people come afterwards and they'll look and they'll buy the DVDs and they'll ask questions like, what's the oil you use? Because the secret's in the oil, and the secret's this, and the secret is here, without understanding that the secret is really in the heart. And the secret is being willing to be present, being willing to be open, being willing to be vulnerable, being willing to be there as a man in all of your fire, being willing to be there as a man in all of your tears, and absolutely everything in between those that makes up who we are. And in the work that I do and the path that I have followed, our relationship with our body becomes the way to do this. Really connecting with our body, connecting with our senses, all of our senses. So there's a very big concept in Tantra called sensoriality. Sensoriality is really about the fact that when we are in the sensual present, we are in the present. And our bodies, taste, touch, sight, smell, sound, feeling, are the way to become more present. So to do this, we have to understand that our sexuality is about every part of our body, from the top of our head to the tips of our fingers and the soles of our feet, and everything in between, not just our genitals. And it's about the connection between our genitals and our heart, and the connection between our heart and our eyes, and our heart and our mouths, and our heart and our skin. And when we create this relationship with our bodies, we're creating a connection, a really deep connection with ourselves. And we have, so many of us in so many aspects of our society, such an obsession with bodies, with the way that we should look, with the way that our body should be, the weight we should have, the muscles we should have, instead of just simply relaxing into ourselves and connecting with, bringing all the parts of us home, that all of the parts of us have a place around the fire. And that means acknowledging our fears, acknowledging our vulnerabilities, acknowledging what scares us, acknowledging what hurts us, acknowledging the absolute human man that we are. All of that. Acknowledging that there is so much that we don't know and don't know how to do. A little while ago, I sat with a man in my office. He'd been married 20 years, and the marriage was slowly crumbling, and then it became not so slow. And he sat there in tears one day and he said his biggest realization was he never knew how to be a husband. And there was this incredible myth that he had that he knew how to do this, and he was supposed to know how to do this. And the moment where we as men say, I don't know that I know, becomes so beautiful because it opens the space for learning. It opens the space for growing, and it opens the space for healing, whatever that might be. And just to digress for a moment, those guys who know me and read my stuff and listen to me know that I love to digress on certain things sometimes. I've been thinking a lot lately about healing, because most people come into my world because they're looking for healing. And lately, I've been very aware of the fact that I actually have no idea what that is anymore. I do what I do and it makes changes, absolutely. But more and more, I think we need more lovers than we need more healers. Because healing is really creating a space of openness, which is a space of love, for us to see who we are, for us to connect with that and to start living with that, to simply bring ourselves into that space. And the journey of this, and very much the tantric journey, is a journey to truth, to the truth of who we are, which is a constant exploration. It's a constant inquiry of ourselves, of how we do what we do. In this instance, how we do that as men. And what's interesting is this. I've been a single parent since my daughter was 4 years old. So we are incredibly close. And she's had a lot to deal with in her life. The times that she has healed and changed and grown and expanded the most have been the times where I have done my inner stuff the most. Not by what I've said to her, because we talk lots and we talk really deeply and really openly. It's been when something in me has changed, when I have acknowledged more of myself, when I have revealed more and released more and got in touch with more. And some of that I've shared with her and some of it I haven't. But in that inward journey, it's made that possible for her. And that's so important for us to understand. We can go and learn all sorts of things. We can go to a million workshops. We can go to a million events and experiences. It's really about that inner journey. And one of the things that so many of us as men want to do is we want to have impact. And of course, women do as well. But again, the focus of tonight's talk is men. We want to have impact. We want to do things in the world. We want to create things and create legacies and buildings and all sorts of things. When we go inwards, that's where we change more things out in the world than anything else. When we allow ourselves to be more with ourselves. And as men, we have been so conditioned that it's all so much about action. It's about doing things. And it's actually very often the opposite of that. It's about finding the stillness within, finding the quietness within. And when we do that, action that we take in the world flows naturally from that. We hear the deep essence of life. And when we can go really deeply into that stillness, we hear what in Tantra is called the spanda, which is the tremoring of life, the tremoring of the universe, the vibration of the universe. So it's being quiet in that, being quiet in our hearts, being quiet in our bodies that allows us the expression of that, being in the fullness of who we are as men, with a voice that is amazing and loud and sets the earth shaking, and at the same time is so quiet, and allowing ourselves all of that fire, all of our tears, and allowing ourselves, more than anything else as sexual men, our hearts. And I think that's what I have to say about male sexuality tonight. So I'd love to share more with everyone. So just quickly, and then we can have some questions and discussion, or I'd just like to hear what you thought about what I have said. On Saturday, we're doing for the first time a new experience called Aqua Release. That's in an indoor heated pool. And we have added a conscious kink element, a bondage element to this. And it's experience of really deep release, of really deep relaxation. That's happening on Saturday at 5 o'clock. It's in Johannesburg. The weekend of Valentine's, which is the 12th to the 14th, is the retreat for couples. And in South Africa, we have a curfew, which is at the moment, I think, at 9 o'clock at night. So it's really changed the way we do a lot of things. So a lot of the evening workshops have had to change, and we've finally found a date for a water massage experience, which is Saturday, must be the 5th. So it's not Saturday this week, it's the following Saturday, and that's at 5 o'clock. And that's what I have coming up, as well as being available for sessions online and in person. So any questions that you have about any of that, please message me, email me after this. And I'd really love to hear your thoughts, your comments on what I have shared with you. You can just type a word or two in the chat box, or unmute yourselves and say whatever it is that you would like. Thank you. I really appreciate all of what you guys have said. Thank you. I really do. I haven't done a webinar on that yet, Isabella, but it will come up. It's actually one of the courses that I'm going to start creating soon, is the work that I share with people in a one-on-one space. I'm going to put that into a course format. And it would be a good workshop to do. So it will come up. Thanks, Damien. I will type my email here because that'll be the easiest. John T. ross.co.za. And this is my website where there's a lot of information on stuff coming up. I also send out a newsletter every week with information on what it is that I'm doing, events and things. Also the links to the webinars. So on the website, you can subscribe to the newsletter. I'd love to come to the Eastern Cape, Damien. I love to share with people, so I would love to do that. It looks like for those in Cape Town, I hope to be back there in March. We're starting to look at some dates, which hopefully we'll have soon. And also later this year, looking at doing probably about a week-long sexual massage training, which is really going to be sharing the work that I do in my practice, teaching you how to do that. So that'll be something that we will look at. There's quite a few people who've been from PE in East London who have been on some of the webinars and on my database. So we'll definitely look at that, and I'd love to do that. So thank you all so much for sharing. I had no idea how this was going to come out tonight. And I learned something a while ago. If you've never read Gabor Mate's work, I'll type his name in here. He is a phenomenal thinker, writer, speaker in the world of mind, body, medicine, healing. And he says something so beautiful that all that we can really bring as facilitators of the space is our presence. And everything that we know, kind of all the information, all the technique stuff is really secondary to that. And I had no real idea how this was going to come out tonight. But I really thank you for sharing the space with me and the opportunity to share. So again, thank you. And I wish you all so much pleasure.